A good Erev Shabbos. How's everybody doing? Great to be learning with you on a Friday afternoon. Let's light up the darkness. I'm feeling energized. Let's rock and roll. Fun page. Who's in the house? Yehud in South Carolina. Bill in Mid-Missouri. Renee says good Shabbos. Paul is in the house. Sharon in New Jersey. And Karen in Northern California, Ella, Marjorie, and Aoife in Florida. Welcome, everybody. Are you getting tired of conditional gets, conditional bills of divorce? Well, we're almost through. But what we're learning, so our daf today is page Ayin Vav, page 76 here in Tractate Gittin, the 19th volume of the Talmud. Generally, the laws of divorce. We're in chapter 7. Continuing our discussion of Mishna number 6, where a husband says to the wife, this is your get on condition that you nurse our son. One idea, if he doesn't specify the amount of time, then the sages surmise that he means for 2 years, the normal amount of time to nurse a son from beginning to end. Or if he does specify a time, that changes the condition. And then, or he says, if you will take care of my father, be a caretaker for my father, time unspecified or time specified. And apropos of this discussion, we learned from the dialogue, essentially, between the tribes, the children of Reuben and Gad in the wilderness, talking to Moses, where they wanted to stay outside the promised land because that land was good for their livestock on the east side of the Jordan River. And Moses said, what are you, crazy? You've been waiting 40 years to enter the promised land. You don't want to go in. And you're going to abandon your brothers and sisters who have to go in and fight the war of the conquest over the land, over these child-sacrificing wicked tribes that are inhabiting the land now. They said, no, we'll fight alongside our brothers and sisters, and then we'll return to this land. And so here we learn how to articulate a proper condition for a contract or a gift or a get from Moses, right? So he says, if you will fight alongside your brothers and sisters until the conquest is complete, then you may have that land on the east side of the Jordan as your inheritance. And if you will not fight alongside your brothers and sisters, then you will not receive that land as an inheritance. So you have to compound the condition, say what will happen if the condition is met, and what will happen if the condition is not met. And the proper way to state it is to say the condition, right? So if this action is done, then the consequence will be such and such in that order. Okay, so we pick this up a few lines from the top on page 76a, continuing the Gemara discussion on this Mishnah. The sages taught, if a husband said to his wife, this is your get, your bill of divorce, on the condition that you will serve my father for 2 years, meaning be his caretaker for 2 years. Or he said, this is your get on the condition that you will nurse my son for 2 years. Even if the condition was not fulfilled, it is a valid bill of divorce because he did not say to her, if you will serve my father, then this will be a valid get. And if you will not serve him, it will not be a valid get, right? Since the condition was not compounded, the way that we learn from Moses in the Torah, if you do such and such, then this will be the result. And if you don't do such and such, then this will be the opposite result, right? You have to state both what happens if you fulfill the condition and if you don't. Here, the husband only said to her, this is your get if you will take care of my father. Or this is your get if you will nurse my son. In both cases with a time limit for 2 years. But he didn't say, and this is not your get if you don't take care. Or this is not your get if you don't nurse. It wasn't compounded. So according to this first view in the Tosefta, where the sages teach that the condition, because it wasn't compounded, there was no condition. The condition itself was invalid. Therefore, what remains is, this is your get. So they are divorced from that moment because the condition was nothing. It was as if he said nothing. blah. So the sages taught in the Tosefta that this is nothing because the condition was not compounded. But hold on, the Tosefta says this is the statement of Rabbi Meir, right? Because it was not compounded, there is no condition, and the get is valid right away because there was no condition. And the rabbis say, right? So this was, and the sages taught in the Tosefta. Now the first view is Rabbi Meir's view. The condition was not valid because it was not compounded. So it's a valid get, and we don't even, the wife doesn't have to take care of anybody. She's divorced. And the rabbis say, so this is the majority who disagrees with Rabbi Meir, who overrules Rabbi Meir. And the rabbis say, the condition is valid. Even though it was not compounded, it is valid. The condition is valid even though the husband does not stipulate both the positive and negative outcomes of meeting or not meeting the condition. Consequently, if the condition was fulfilled, that she nurses the child for 2 years or she takes care of the father for 2 years, then this is a valid get. And if the condition was not fulfilled, right, she doesn't take care of the father, she doesn't nurse the son, then it is not a valid get. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, you do not have a condition in the Bible that is not compounded. Okay, so what does Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel mean by that? How does that apply? How does that answer our situation here? Who is he agreeing with? With the rabbis who say even though the husband didn't compound the condition, it is a valid condition? Or is Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel agreeing with Rabbi Meir who says no, because the husband didn't compound the condition, there was no condition, and therefore the divorce is valid immediately? So when Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says that every condition stated in the Bible is compounded, does he mean that Rabbi Meir is right? Let's go on. So to which side of the dispute is Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel's statement referring? So there are those who say that Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is speaking to Rabbi Meir. And there are others who say, no, he's speaking to the rabbis. And the Gemara explains. There are those who say that he is speaking to Rabbi Meir. And this is what Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is saying to Rabbi Meir. You do not have a condition in the Bible that is not compounded. And therefore, the compound conditions mentioned in the Torah have the status of two verses that come as one, i.e., to teach the same matter. And any two verses in the Bible that come as one do not teach about other cases. They're considered special cases in the Torah, and we don't learn out laws from two verses that come to teach one idea. Because it was taught by two verses rather than one, that indicates exegetically that that's a special case, and we're not going to learn that principle out from that case and extend it to other cases. So therefore, consequently, one cannot derive from the fact that conditions are compounded in the Bible that every condition must be compounded. So it sounds like Rabban Shimon Gamliel is saying to Rabbi Meir, you're wrong. The majority who disagreed with you is right. This was a valid condition even though it was not stated in a compound fashion. But there are others who say that Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is saying this to the rabbis. And this is what he is saying to them. There is no condition in the Bible that is not compounded. And we learn from the conditions written in the Bible that a condition is not valid unless it is compounded. So which is it? There's two ways to interpret the placement of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel's point here in the Gemara, and we don't understand what he's trying to say. And the Gemara raises a contradiction based on what was taught in a Baraisa. If a husband said to his wife, this is your get on the condition that you will serve my father for 2 years, or he said to her, this is your get on the condition that you will nurse my son for 2 years, and the father died, or the son died, then it is not a valid get, as its condition was not fulfilled. And this is the statement of Rabbi Meir. And the rabbis in that Baraisa, who overrule Rabbi Meir, they say, even though the condition was not fulfilled, it is a valid bill of divorce. It is a valid get, because she could have said to him, give me your father and I will serve him, or give me your son and I will serve and I will nurse him. Right? She was ready to be the caretaker or to be the nursing mom. If the opportunity was removed from her, it was through no fault of her own. So it is difficult to reconcile one statement of Rabbi Meir, right, in the Tosefta, with this statement of Rabbi Meir in the Baraisa. And it is difficult to reconcile the statement of the rabbis in the Tosefta with the statement of the rabbis in the Baraisa. But the Gemara answers, no, it is not difficult. We can reconcile one statement of Rabbi Meir with the other statement of Rabbi Meir like this. In the case where the get is valid, it is referring to when the husband did not compound his condition. And here, where the get is valid, it is referring to when he did compound the condition. But the Tan of the Baraisa, the Rabbi of the Baraisa, did not mention that particular fact explicitly. And it is not difficult to reconcile the statement of the rabbis in the Tosefta with the statement of the rabbis in the Baraisa, because whose is the opinion mentioned here anonymously as the rabbis? It's actually the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, who says if there is any hindrance to fulfilling the condition that doesn't come from her, then it is a valid get. So the Gemara continues discussing the conditional get. The sages taught in a Tosefta 6:6, if a husband said to his wife in the presence of two people, this is your get on the condition that you will serve my father for 2 years. And afterward, right, so that was what he said initially. This is your get on condition that you will take care of my father for 2 years. And afterward, the husband returned and said to the wife in the presence of two witnesses, this is your get on the condition that you will give me 200 dinars. So now he's made two entirely different conditions. He said, both times in front of witnesses, this is your get on the condition that you'll take care of my father for 2 years. And then he returned and said, again in presence of two witnesses, this is your get on the condition that you will give me money. You will give me 200 dinars. So what has he said? Has he said that this is your get if you fulfill both conditions? Or this is your get if you fulfill either condition? Or this is your get, previously I said the condition was serving my father for 2 years. Now that I gave you a new condition, the previous condition is nullified, and it's only the latter condition that can, if you fulfill it, will result in the get. So it's three possible ways to interpret this. So what happens? So the sages taught the latter statement. When he comes back and says, first he said, this is your get on condition you serve my father for 2 years. Then he comes back and he says, this is your get on condition you give me money, 200 dinars. So that second statement does not nullify the first statement. Rather, the husband is giving his wife a choice. And if she fulfills either one of the conditions, then the get is valid. So if she wishes, she serves his father and becomes divorced, or if she wishes, she gives him 200 dinars and is divorced. But if the husband said to her in the presence of two witnesses, this is your get on the condition that you will give me 200 dinars, and afterward he returned and said to her in the presence of two other witnesses, this is your get on the condition that you will give me 300 dinars, then the latter statement does nullify the first statement. And she is not divorced unless she gives him 300 dinars. And one of the first pair of witnesses and one of the last pair of witnesses cannot combine their testimonies concerning the condition. And the Gemara asks, to which clause of the Baraisa is the statement that the witnesses cannot combine their testimonies referring? If we say that it is referring to the latter clause where the husband demanded an additional 100 dinars, then it already said that the first condition is nullified. It is unnecessary to mention that the two pairs of witnesses cannot combine their testimonies, since the condition witnessed by the first witnesses no longer exists. Rather, it is referring to the first clause. But isn't it obvious that these two pairs of witnesses cannot combine their testimonies, since each of them are testifying about a different condition? And the Gemara answers, lest you say that all of those who testify to the existence of conditions can combine their testimonies to testify that a bill of divorce was given with a condition. This teaches us that that is not the case. And that is the end of our discussion of Mishnah number 6. Now we go to Mishnah number 7 here in chapter 7. If a resident of the region of Judea intending to embark on a journey to the Galilee, right? So Judea, generally that area in central Israel that Jerusalem is part of. And the Galilee is the northern part of Israel, right? That includes the Kinneret, often called the Sea of Galilee. So the husband. So we're talking about a husband, and he's a resident of Judea, and he's intending to go on a journey to the north. And he said to his wife, "This is your get if I do not come back from now until the conclusion of 30 days." Right? Meaning, if I don't come back in 30 days, this is your get. Right? And he said from now. So that language was key. So if he doesn't come back in 30 days, the get becomes valid, and its effective date is when the husband gave it to her. So retroactively, they're divorced from the time that he actually handed her the get. Right? So he says, this is your get if I do not come back from now until, within 30 days. And now the Mishnah continues. And when he was going from Judea to the Galilee, he reached Antipatris. So Antipatris is, maybe about a quarter to a third of the way toward the Galilee as you head up north. So he only got, let's say, a quarter of the way there, and then he returned immediately. Right? So he was thinking, I'm going to go up to the Galilee. He never got to the Galilee. In fact, he only went on a very short trip before he changed his mind and came home. He returned immediately. So his condition is void and his wife is not divorced. Now that makes sense. He said, this is your get if I do not return within 30 days. Well, he returned within 30 days. He returned quite quickly, in fact. So that's it. The get's finished. The condition is done. And this is the case even if the condition is void, the wife is not divorced, even if he subsequently returns to the Galilee for longer than 30 days. And the reason for this is because he reached the Galilee and returned to Judea within the time he had allotted. It's not that he reached the Galilee. He didn't reach the Galilee, unless you consider Antipatris the southern end of the Galilee. But the point is, what he said to her was, this is your get if I don't come back in 30 days. Well, he came back like in maybe a few hours or maybe a few days, but quite quickly. If he then left and he actually went to the Galilee like he was originally intending, and he didn't come back for 30 days, well, if he had stated again, this is your get if I do not come back, and probably he would need a new get for that purpose, then he would, create a new condition, and then if that condition was not met, the divorce might happen. But since he said, if I don't come back in 30 days, and he did come back in 30 days, this particular get is voided. That's it. So there can't be divorced based on that get. Similarly, if a resident of the Galilee intending to embark on a journey to Judea, so one living in the north is coming south, and he says to his wife, this is your get if I do not come back from now until the conclusion of 30 days, and he was going from the Galilee to Judea, and he reached Kafar Otnai and returned immediately, his condition is void and his wife is not divorced, even if he subsequently returns to Judea for longer than 30 days. Similarly, if a resident of the land of Israel intending to embark on a journey to a country overseas said to his wife, this is your get if I do not come back from now until the conclusion of 30 days, right? If I do not come back within 30 days, and he was going to a country overseas, and he reached Akko and then he returned immediately, his condition is void, and his wife is not divorced, even if he subsequently travels to a country overseas for longer than 30 days. If a husband said to his wife, "This is your get, if at any time I will depart from your presence for 30 consecutive days." So he says, this is your get if we're ever apart for 30 days or more. Then, even if he was continually going and coming, since he was not secluded with her during these 30 days, this is a valid bill of divorce. Now that's very odd, because the language of his condition was, this is your get if at any time I will depart from your presence for 30 consecutive days. And then the Mishnah tells us, even if he's, coming in and out of the house constantly, but they're not secluded together, meaning they don't have an opportunity to have marital relations for 30 days, then the get becomes valid. So it seems that when he said, this is your bill of divorce, if at any time I will depart from your presence for 30 consecutive days, that depart from your presence, even though it just sounds like I'll be away from you and we won't be in each other's company, what it actually means is if we don't have sex for 30 days. So that's interesting. And that's our Mishnah. Now the Gemara. The Gemara asks, is this to say that Antipatris was in the Galilee? Right, so remember he said, the guy living in Judea is planning to go up to the Galilee, and he says to his wife, this is your get if I do not return within 30 days. And then he goes up to, he only gets as far as Antipatris, and returns, and he's well within the 30-day time limit. Now, he never said to her, I'm going to the Galilee. That wasn't mentioned. So the first question is, okay, well, if they seem to be making an issue of the fact that Antipatris is like a town, maybe at the southernmost edge of the Galilee. But why does that even matter? Does it really matter that his mental intention was, I'm planning to go up to the Galilee, that's why I'm giving her a get in case I don't return in 30 days, and then he never makes it to the Galilee, or he only makes it to the border of the Galilee? What difference does that make? What he said to her was, this is your get if I don't return in 30 days. He didn't say anything about his destination. So the Gemara is zoning in on this. Is this to say that Antipatris was in the Galilee? It appears from the Mishnah that Antipatris was on the border of the Galilee, since the condition of the resident of Judea became void by his reaching Antipatris and returning. And the Gemara raises a contradiction based on what is taught in a Baraisa, Tosefta 7:9. Antipatris is in Judea, and Kfar Otnai is in the Galilee. And I'm having the weirdest thing. Do you ever have, like my phone is not in my pocket, and it is not ringing or doing anything, and I feel like there's something in my pocket that's vibrating, but there's nothing there. It's so strange. Ghost vibrating phone. Okay, anyway. Where am I? So the Gemara raises a contradiction based on what is taught in a Baraisa. Antipatris is in Judea, Kfar Otnai is in the Galilee. And with regard to the area between them, a stringent ruling is placed on it, and it is treated as though it is located in both Judea and the Galilee. So if the husband who made such a condition reached his area and returned home, it is uncertain whether the condition attached to the bill of divorce was fulfilled. Therefore, there is uncertainty whether she is divorced or whether she is not divorced. Now, again, so they're saying that Antipatris might be in the Galilee. But again, if we go back, right, he's a resident of Judea and he's intending to go to the Galilee. But what he says to his wife is, this is your get if I do not come back from now until the end of 30 days. That's what he said. The Mishnah continues, and when he was going from Judea to Galilee, he reached Antipatris and he returned immediately. So his condition is void. His condition is void because he came back within 30 days. Why does where he went even matter? It seems that because he said this apropos of his intention to go up to the Galilee, that whether he made it to the Galilee or not matters to the condition, even though his wife might not have been aware of it. Or perhaps we read into this Mishnah that no, it doesn't need to be mentioned. That didn't need to be said in the Mishnah for us to understand that it was said to his wife. I'm not sure about that. Now we're on 76b. Abaye said, it may be that Antipatris is in Judea and Kfar Otna is in the Galilee. The Mishnah can be explained like this. The husband was saying a statement including two conditions to her. If I arrive in the Galilee, then this will be a get immediately. Or if I will tarry on the way for 30 days and I do not come home, this will be a valid get. So if he reached Antipatris and returned within 30 days, as he did not arrive in the Galilee and he also did not tarry for 30 days, then the condition is void and she is not divorced. Right? So Abaye obviously had the same difficulty that I had, and so he has to explain, well, no, we have to understand that the Mishnah as though he stated two conditions to the wife. Now the continuation of the Mishnah taught, this is your get if I do not come back from now until the conclusion of 30 days. This is when he was intending to go to a country overseas. And the Gemara asks, is this to say that Akko is in a country overseas and is not considered part of Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel? But didn't Rav Safra say when the sages would take leave from one another before departing Eretz Yisrael, they would take their leave in Akko, because it is prohibited to leave from Eretz Yisrael to go outside of Eretz Yisrael. And this indicates that Akko is within Eretz Yisrael. So Abaye said the husband was saying a statement including two conditions to her. If I arrive in a country overseas, then this will be a valid get immediately. Or if I tarry 30 days on the way and I do not come back home, this will be a valid get. If he reached Akko and returned, as he did not reach a country overseas, and he also did not tarry for 30 days, so the condition has not been met and the wife is not divorced. The Mishnah continues. Our Mishnah continues and says, if a husband said to his wife, this is your get, if at any time I will depart from your presence for 30 consecutive days, then even if he was continually going and coming, since he was not secluded with her during these 30 days, this is a valid get. And the Gemara challenges this. But did he not pass from her presence during this time? As he was coming and going the entire time. He was in her presence, clearly. And Rav Huna said, what is the meaning of the term your presence in this context? It means sexual intercourse. And his actual condition was that if he will not engage in sexual intercourse with her for 30 days, then the get will be valid. And why does he call sexual intercourse your presence? Says the Gemara, he employed a euphemistic expression when he made his condition. He's very refined, he's a character with very refined speech. And rather than speak of sexual intercourse, he says, if I'm not in your presence. But that's what he meant. And Rabbi Yochanan disagreed with this and said, actually, the husband meant literally your presence, i.e., that he would not be in his wife's presence for 30 consecutive days. Is the Mishnah teaching that she is divorced immediately? No, it is teaching only that this is a valid get. And this means that although the condition was not fulfilled during these 30 days, since he was not secluded with her, this is not considered to be an outdated get, which the sages said may not be used for divorce. And when at some point in the future, the 30 days during which he does pass from her presence are fulfilled, then this will be a valid get. Right? So Rabbi Yochanan is saying, no. He said to her, if at any point I am not in your presence for 30 consecutive days, then this is a valid get. Now, does that mean that it has to do it over the next 30 days? Says Rabbi Yochanan, no. This get is going to remain potentially valid ad infinitum. As long as they're married, according to what he said, if he's ever apart from her, completely apart from her for 30 days or more, then they become divorced because he handed her that get with that condition. And the get does not become outdated, according to Rabbi Yochanan. Now, the Gemara comments that it is taught in a Baraisa in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. If one says to his wife, "This is your get, if at any time I will depart from your presence for 30 consecutive days," and he was going and coming for the entire 30 days, since he was not secluded with her during that time, this is a valid get. And one is not concerned that it is now considered an outdated bill of divorce because he was not secluded with her. And the Gemara asks, but let there be a concern that perhaps he appeased his wife during this time that he was coming and going, and he was secluded with her. I'm not quite sure how this is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, who seemed to be saying something different. But at any rate, let's keep going. The Gemara asks, but let there be a concern that perhaps he appeased his wife during this time, that he was going and coming, and he was secluded with her, right? So what's going on? So they're saying that, no. He did mean, this is your get, if we have 30 days without having sexual intercourse. So while he was coming and going from the house, he was regularly around her, but they may or may not have been secluded, right? So we're concerned that maybe they were secluded during this time, and so they did have sex, and so the get is canceled, right? That's it. Or at least it won't be triggered during this period. So Rabba bar Rav Huna said, so said my father, my teacher Rav Huna, in the name of Rav. The Baraisa is referring to a situation where the husband says, she is deemed credible by me to say that I did not come. Since the husband states explicitly that he believes her about this, if she said that he was not secluded with her, then the bill of divorce remains valid. This is so odd, right? The husband is saying she is credible. I believe her when she says that I was here or I wasn't here. Does he not trust himself? Does he not know his own? Does he not himself know? Maybe he has a very bad memory. So there are those who teach this statement of Rav Huna in the name of Rav with regard to the Mishna that is mentioned later on, which says that if the husband said to his wife, this is your get from now, if I do not come back from now until the conclusion of 12 months, and he died within 12 months. So this is a valid get. And the Gemara asks, but let there be a concern that perhaps he appeased his wife during this time and was secluded with her. And Rabba bar Rav Huna says, so said my father, my teacher, Rav Huna, in the name of Rav. The Mishna is referring to a situation where the husband says, she is deemed credible by me to say that I did not come, and he did not appease her. Okay, now we understand a little bit better why they're bringing sexual relations into this. Because if he says, for example, this is your get from now, if I do not return within 12 months, right? And then, so let's read it again. If he says, this is your get from now, if I do not come back within 12 months. Before the 12 months ended, he died. All right, so before the 12 months ended, he died. So, he didn't come back, right? So he died during that period. So therefore, the get should be active, right? It should be effective from when he gave it to her. Because he said, this is your get from now if I do not return within 12 months. He doesn't return because during that period, he dies. So it would seem that the get became valid as of when he gave it to her. And so when he died, she's a divorcee, not his wife. What we're concerned about is that before he died, he went back home and they had sex. Now, if they divorced because the get was valid, and later the condition was met that he didn't return within 12 months, and so the divorce was triggered retroactively from the moment when he handed her the get. But if they had sex after that, then and they hadn't had sex with anyone else in the meantime, that act of lovemaking could be viewed as a betrothal, right? That they got divorced, but then they had sex, and then they became betrothed again. So when he died, she became a widow, and she was no longer a divorcee. That's the concern. And so that's the concern. But so said Rabba bar Rav Huna in the name of his father Rav Huna in the name of Rav. The Mishna is referring to a situation where the husband says, she is deemed credible by me to say that I did not come. In other words, I am telling the court that she is credible. So if I died during that period, and now they're trying to figure out, was she a divorcee or a widow? Okay, well, the get was valid because I didn't return within 12 months. I died during that period. So the divorce became effective as of when I gave it to her. And if she now tells the court that the husband didn't come home during that period after he handed her the get, then they should believe her, and she is a divorcee and not a widow. So the Gemara comments concerning the one who taught that the statement of Rav Huna in the name of Rav with regard to the Mishnah, all the more so he should teach that statement with regard to the Baraisa. Since the husband was constantly coming and going, the bill of divorce would be valid only if the husband stated that he trusts his wife to say that she was not secluded with him. Concerning the one who taught this statement with regard to the Baraisa, it is possible that he taught this only with regard to the Baraisa, but with regard to the Mishnah, that this is not the case, as he did not come back home within 12 months, but rather he just simply died while he was away. Therefore, even if he did not specify that he trusts his wife to say whether or not they were secluded, there is no concern that perhaps he was secluded with her without anyone else knowing about it. Again, the sages are being very careful about, was this a valid divorce or not, and can we establish that with confidence? Because, for example, if she thought she was divorced, but she really wasn't, so then she died a widow. Then when the husband died, she became a widow. And if they didn't have children together and the husband left a brother, then she has to perform chalitza or yibum with that brother. But let's say the brother doesn't want to marry her and she doesn't want to marry the brother, but they have to perform the chalitza ceremony before she's free to marry someone else. Right? And if that brother's, overseas, she's stuck for a long time. So she might be tempted to say, yeah, no. We never got, my husband and I never got back together again after he handed me that bill of divorce that was conditional on him not coming home within 12 months, and he died while he was away. And now she doesn't tell the truth. It's a problem because in the absence of performing that chalitza, she's not free. And if she goes and marries someone else, that marriage is not a valid marriage. Very problematic. At any rate, that concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 7. Here comes Mishnah number 8. If a husband said to his wife, this is your get if I do not come back from now until 12 months, and he died within the 12 months. This Mishnah that we were just talking about now is our next Mishnah. Right? So this is your get if I do not come back from now until 12 months, and he died within the 12 months. So says the Mishnah, this is not a valid get. And this is because the get cannot take effect after the husband's death. As a result, she is bound by a levered bond if the husband has no children. Why didn't that work? Right? Because they were missing the key words, from now. Right? It's not a valid get because he says, this is your get if I do not come back. This is your get if I do not come back from now until the end of 12 months. He said from now, but he didn't say this is your get from now if I do not come back from now until 12 months. Right? Because he said this is a get that only becomes valid after I die. Well, a get can't become valid after you die. It only works if the get was valid retroactively from when he handed it to her. Since he didn't use the correct language, it's not a valid get, and when he dies, she becomes a widow. Conversely, says the Mishnah, if the husband said to her, this is your get from now, if I do not come back from now until the end of 12 months, and he died within 12 months, this is a valid get. And this is because the bill of divorce takes effect retroactively. Since he did not return within the year, the condition was fulfilled. If a husband said to other people, if I do not come back from now until the end of 12 months, write and give a get to my wife, and they wrote a get during the 12 months and gave it to her after the 12 months had elapsed, this is not a valid get, because he instructed them to write the get only after the 12 months had elapsed. Here there's no death. Similarly, if he said to other people, write and give a get to my wife if I do not come back from now until the end of 12 months, and they wrote the get during the 12 months, but they gave it to her after the 12 months, it is not a valid get, because he instructed them to write the get only after the 12 months had elapsed, when it was clear that he did not come back. Rabbi Yosef disagrees and says in a case like this, it is a valid get, as he did not tell them when to write the bill of divorce. Rather, he stipulated only the time of giving. If they wrote the get after 12 months had elapsed, and they gave it after 12 months had elapsed, but in the interim the husband died, if the giving of the get occurred before the husband died, this is a valid divorce. But if the husband's death occurred before the get was given to his wife, then it is not a valid get, because you can't get divorced after the husband is dead. And if it is not known which occurred first, this is a case where the sages said there is a suffix, there is an uncertainty whether she is divorced or whether she is not divorced. That's the Mishnah. Here's the Gemara. The Mishnah states that if a husband said to his wife, this is your get if I do not come back from now until the end of 12 months, and the husband died within that time, it is not a valid divorce. And with regard to this, it is taught in a Baraisa, our rabbis disagreed and permitted her to marry without requiring chalitza, because they hold that it is a valid get. And the Gemara clarifies, who are the rabbis? Who is meant by the rabbis mentioned in this Baraisa? And Rabbi Yehuda said that Shmuel said they are the court that permitted consuming oil manufactured by Gentiles. Why do they hold that this is a valid get? They hold in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yosef, who says the date written in a document proves when it takes effect. Whenever a document is dated, it is assumed that the intent is for it to take effect from the date, from that date, even if it does not state explicitly from now. As we saw, some pages ago last week, that Rabbi Yosef would say you don't need the language of from now if the get is dated. But the majority said no, doesn't matter if there's a date written on the get, unless he says this is your get from now, if I do not return in 12 months, then this is not going to work. Now, Rabbi Abba, the son of Rabbi Chia bar Abba, said that Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yehuda Nesiah, the son of Rabban Gamliel, who is the son of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, taught this matter, and all of his colleagues did not concede to his opinion. And some say that all of his life they did not concede to his opinion. I'm very close to done. Questions or comments, get them in. Rabbi Lazar said to a certain elderly man who was a member of Rabbi Yehuda Nesiah's court, when you permitted this woman to remarry, did you permit her to remarry immediately after her husband died? Or did you permit her only after 12 months? Did you permit her to remarry immediately after the husband died because he will certainly not come back? Or perhaps you permitted her to remarry only after 12 months because only then was the husband's condition fulfilled. And the Gemara asks, and let this dilemma be raised also with regard to the Mishnah. In the case where the husband said to his wife, this is your get from now, if I do not come back from now until the end of 12 months, and he died within the 12 months. So this is a valid get. Is the bill of divorce valid immediately once the husband dies because he will certainly not come back? Or perhaps the get is valid only after 12 months have elapsed because only then was the condition that he spoke fulfilled. And the Gemara answers, yes, indeed, so. This question can be asked with regard to the case in the Mishnah, and Rabbi Elazar asked that particular elder because he was present at that incident, and he could answer based on what actually occurred. Okay, that's what I've got for us today. Let's get some comments or questions on Gittin 76. Okay. Okay, so Nina told me there was a chance that she was going to accompany our daughter, to a optometrist appointment. I guess that happened, so I need to scan the comments myself. Let's see what I can do here. Sharon at one point said, that does not seem reasonable. What about an extended bout of illness that goes beyond 30 days, but from which he recovered? Right, but at what point in our class today did you say that? I mean, I guess you're probably talking about the coming and going, and you know, did he mean if we don't have sexual relations for 30 days, or did he mean if we're apart for 30 days? I mean, listen, I think that, you know, over and over again, I mean, if he says, if I don't come back within 12 months, this is your get from now, okay, that's a real world situation, right? That could be a husband who's going to a dangerous place or who's going off to war, and he really expects that if everything is okay, he'll be back within 12 months, and he's not back within 12 months, it's because he's dead, right? And so he says, this is your get from now in that situation. Okay, so there's some logic to that. You know, somebody's saying if we're apart for 30 days at any point in our marriage, you know, we're divorced. I think that's a hypothetical meant to test the principle. And it's definitely not a reasonable type of thing for a husband to say. I think that's just more testing our understanding of the principle, is why they brought in that situation. And let me also check YouTube. Aoife says, when parents divorce, who gets the children? Do they always belong to the husband, even where their paternity might be in doubt? You know, that is a question that hasn't been addressed at all. You know, in terms of custody of the children, I would not say that even in the ancient world, the husband always gets custody. Even in such a patriarchal society, that is unlikely. In fact, I don't remember where I saw it, but it's somewhere in the Talmud that it is more natural for a child, especially a small child, to be with his mom. Well, I guess we're gonna have to get that package delivered another day. But I don't think there was any presumption that a child ends up with the father. And in terms of by what principles did they decide in the case of a divorce who the children remain with, I think it's more likely to end up with the mom, but I don't have it at the tip of my tongue how they make that decision. Eve also says, if there's a condition in the get to nurse the woman's baby in order to receive her get, is she then allowed to take her baby with her to another household? What if she soon remarries? Okay, so I think that question would be answered by the same answer I gave before. Okay, so that's what I've got for us today. And with God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow night after Shabbos. It's getting a little earlier each week, but hopefully I can get on the air by, let's say, 9:15 p.m., something like that, here in Pacific time. Have